Hi there. After my family and I started homeschooling, not long after, I decided to plan a trip to Washington, D.C. and the surrounding area. And we went with another family, and my kids had a blast. We visited all over D.C. I ran them ragged, but we had such a great time. And it's a trip that I really want other homeschool families to be able to enjoy. So I've organized a trip from April 12th to April 18th of 2026 just for homeschool families. And we will be seeing some amazing sites. We'll go to Ford's Theater, where the Lincoln assassination took place. We'll go to the Spy Museum. We're going to see, of course, all the memorials. We will see some government buildings. Also, Mount Vernon is one of my favorite places where George Washington made his home, and the National Zoo, the Museum of the Bible, the Smithsonian, and also Arlington Cemetery. So please join me. This is one of the best things you can do as an American homeschool family. But even if you're coming from abroad, you're more than welcome. I hope to see you there.
The Sam Sorbo Show is brought to you in partnership by the Herzog Foundation.
All righty. My guest is taking a flamethrower to the woke war on manhood. She's exposing lies, reclaiming truth, and igniting a movement to rebuild real masculinity from the ashes. You are not going to want to miss this episode of the Sam Sorbo Show. Here we go.
Sam Sorbo,
Sam, welcome back to the program.
I'm glad we welcome Sam Sorbo.
It's great to have you here.
Okay, so my guest is a national media voice. She is a best-selling author and a fearless advocate for men and boys. From tackling cultural lies to championing emotional resilience, she's leading the charge to restore strength, truth, and purpose in a confused world. So I'm welcoming to the show Dr. Gilda Carle.
Carle.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. It is Carle. My last
It is
name,
Carle.
but the media dropped it. So now it's just Dr. Gilda. So feel free.
Fair enough. Well, Dr. Gilda is the author, I should say, of this fabulous book, Real Men Don't Go Woke, because let's face it, we know this, real men don't go woke. Unlike, unfortunately, the Democrat Party, who is just, that they just spent like $20 million to wage a campaign to try to figure out where all the men went. And I could have told you that in a moment, and I wouldn't have charged $20 million.
No. As a matter of fact, my book for less than $20 has all the data that I'm looking for. So come on, gang. I mean, just read what you see here. It took me about a year of research to get all of these facts as I have them in the book. And every single story is real. It's a real man that we're talking about. And I mentioned a lot of celebrity names because let's face it, most people don't even know their legislators' names. So I said, you know what? I'm going with the celebrities that people know. They will talk about how depressed they are, how lonely they are, how upset they are with their divorces, and how upset they are with the current state of affairs. So I am definitely going to include those names in this book. And that's what I did.
So you interviewed people and you tell their stories. And what is the upshot of all of that? Like, what do you feel like you've accomplished?
Oh boy, so much has been done. I uncovered so much fury that men are holding within them. And the silence that we're all so familiar with is what is riveting, because they're holding it in, and like a warm bottle of champagne that you shake, all of a sudden the cork pops. And that's what happens to men. And in some cases, if the cork pops at the wrong time, at the wrong place, usually, and that's the case because they've held it in for so long. As an example, Will Smith slapping Chris Rock. He had years of anger and emotion that was never processed, never tapped into. And he probably didn't even realize how upset he was all these years until finally he just exploded, as we all saw. And at least I can say, at least he did that. Unfortunately, those who don't end up internalizing all this negativity, and the rate of suicide among men is 4 times greater that of women.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, that
to the point that even President Trump mentioned these same statistics. Maybe he read the book. Maybe we're looking at the same data. But you know what? It's unquestionable now. We have a problem with our boys and our men. When the book first came out, I had a big book signing. It was enormous. You know, book signings are usually a couple of people here, a couple of people there. They attend, but this was mobbed. They all wanted to see what this title, "Real Men Don't Go Woke," was all about. And the room was filled out, spilling out onto the street, in fact. It was filled with men and women. And they almost couldn't believe it when I said, you know, these guys are just committing suicide at a rate we've never seen before. And I said, and even young boys as young as 10 are committing suicide. And some of them in the group looked at me like I had 2 heads. We went home. The next morning, I get a phone call from one of the female attendees. "I can't stop crying," she said. I said, "What's going on?" Her best friend's son, 13 years old, had just taken his life while we were all talking about just this thing. She said, "My God, you are onto something gigantic."
yeah.
Then thank you, Donald Trump, for at least putting it out there and letting people know we cannot be silent anymore.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. My son actually also has written a book called Embrace Masculinity. So it's sort of the antidote for what your book is about, in a sense. Who did you come on, name some names, drop some names on us so that we get a picture of the book.
Who am I talking about? Well, I go through the whole scenario about Will Smith, for example. That is
a great example. It's a great example. I think the story there is his wife was cheating on him a lot, and right in front of him and right under his nose and with his knowledge, and right?
And even bragged about it on TV. And this one that she chose to cheat with was their son's friend.
Right.
I don't care who it is. It could have been Will Smith. It could have been any guy off the street. No guy would feel without humiliation. No guy, no woman. If we had a husband who walked around and went on TV and said, "Oh yes, I cheated with your best friend," the humiliation is tremendous. So he again held it in. And then when Chris Rock finally spoke about it, it was about a year later. And he said, "You know, I know Will Smith was not angry at me. He was angry at his wife. And it's never been shown. I mean, he's never dealt with that." But what happens? He goes back to the wife.
Well, I mean, I was going to mention he didn't take it out on the wife. He actually defended her honor. Like, "Get my wife's name out your mouth," was, I believe, what he said to Chris several times.
To me,
and the joke, and by the way, the joke was not about him being bamboozled or cuckolded, I suppose is the proper term. The joke was about her hair loss.
Right.
So
exactly. It was about her hair loss. And I'll tell you something.
It actually was a clever joke. It was something to do with G.I. Jane,
right?
Because what's her name? Demi Moore had shaved her head for that movie, and so there is Will Smith's wife with a shaved head, and so it was kind of a funny joke. Like okay, you know, it wasn't like the worst joke I've ever heard.
And
he went up.
Was even laughing.
Yeah, he laughed at first, and then he decided no, he had to make a stand. But here's the question I have to ask. He slapped him. That's not a male move.
No, no, it isn't a male move. But before all that happened, he was laughing. I saw the video. I took apart the video step by step, and
Right.
I watched this, and he was laughing at Chris Rock's joke. And then Jada gave him the snake eyes. And she said, so he knew suddenly he had to be a good husband or husband. I don't even know what those two
So
are
wait a
doing.
minute. So then this isn't him popping like a cork. This is him just doing her bidding.
You got it. That's right.
Okay.
But
My bad.
she showed her anger to him.
Right.
And they were sitting at right angles. And he just glanced at her and he saw how furious she was. And he lost himself. And I have seen men get that angry when they don't even know what's happening. And Tyler Perry said later, he came to me afterwards. He didn't even know what was happening. And I don't doubt that. I have seen men go out of their way in raging, and after the fact, they don't even know what happened to them. It just takes over.
Does your book have an example of a guy like realizing that he's gone too woke and he has to get back some of his masculinity? Thanks for tuning into the Sam Sorbo Show. You know, we are in a battle for our very nation, a nation that was founded on Christian principles and on the Bible. The 10 Commandments is the basis for our rule of law. But these days, when you go talk to people on the street, you'll find that most of them don't even know what rule of law means. And that's why I'm so proud to have Herzog Foundation as a sponsor of my show. I also love what they do because they seek for the benefit of Christian education throughout the nation. So Herzog Foundation is a wonderful partner for us here at the Sam Sorbo Show. Thanks for watching. Does your book have an example of a guy like realizing that he's gone too woke and he has to get back some of his masculinity?
Well, there are a lot of those stories in the news. I think when I did write the list of men who stood up, now that's really important. Men who traditionally would go along with the tide. And they're not only Republicans, they're Democrats as well. And they were walking on the straight and narrow. And then all of a sudden, things changed. They realized this is not me and I'm not participating in this game anymore. One example is Sylvester Stallone. He's part of Hollywood. What motivates Hollywood? We know money, 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 money. And yet, when Bud Light came to him and said, we'll give you $100 million, he said, take your $100 million and stick it. I'm not interested. I will not endorse your woke beer.
But he was never woke. Like I'm trying to find. Sorry, go ahead.
No, he was never woke. I don't think there are. Well, if they're dedicated Democrats, I don't think we're going to find so many who are going to say, "Well, I was once woke, and now I turned around." We saw behaviors to that effect, however. Jerry Seinfeld, I mentioned him. He said, this woke stuff is no good. And I use him right at the beginning of the book. And then they got to him. And he turned that whole page. And suddenly he said, no, I shouldn't have said that. So he didn't say I was once woke and now I'm not anymore. But he did endorse a non-woke environment until
and then he retracted.
They got to him. Those are his people. This is Hollywood. Hollywood
Right.
People stick together.
So is there an example of somebody whose cork popped and then they got their life in order?
Well, in a happily ever after world, I would like to say that Will Smith got his life in order, but he didn't. He has not divorced her. He's still with her. He still declares his love for her, and yet they are not, quote, married. They are, as far as we know, still living apart.
Yeah.
And yet he won't let go of her for whatever the reason. She and he have hold on each other.
Yeah.
So
That's,
I don't think with the Hollywood environment as it is, the strength of that, I don't think we will find anybody who's willing to jeopardize their career to come out and say, I was once woke, but now I've changed. Now I'm not anymore.
no,
However,
and there's a really good psychological kind of story that tells behind the scenes on that. And I heard this the other day. It's actually in a Jordan Peterson book.
oh, I love
When,
him. He's listed among my men who
when
stand up.
yes, who stand up. When the scientists, and by the way, I wonder if you did a little bit of digging, if he was ever like slightly marginally woke and then realized that that was just going to careen off the edge, because he is a member of the university class, right? And so I'm
He
sure that
was.
he saw it coming. And then when they did the transgender language, he was like, well, wait a minute. Now I have to think about that because you're compelling my speech. Like he was probably like fairly on board with other people doing their thing or whatever. But I don't know that. In any case, the story is they were studying zebras, and the scientists decided that in order to distinguish the zebras for themselves, they would paint like a red mark on particular zebras. And those became the zebras who were always killed. And the reason wasn't because the lions could sort of pick them out. It was because the zebras themselves ostracized the zebra that didn't belong. And so now we live in a culture, a cancel culture, right? Where it's paramount that you belong. And in fact, I would say because of our schooling, K through 12 and then onward, you're trained in school to conform. You're trained not to stand out, not to draw attention to yourself, because bad things happen when you draw attention to yourself. Even if you're like the smartest one in the class, bad things happen if attention is drawn to that and stuff. And so that's the culture that we live in. So
If you're different, that's
right,
the thing. And
right.
if you're different in any way,
And so
you
now,
will
because we
be
have
different.
this woke culture, these men who have been trained to conform in school, right? They just step up and toe the line. And I don't know, I'm sure that some of them don't believe it, but they'd rather not like speak out. It's terribly emasculating, this culture in and of itself. Am I wrong?
I- You're 100% right. And that's why I wrote Real Men Don't Go Woke. I couldn't take it anymore. And the men who have written to me, and this is on my website, drgilda.com, you will see some of these letters. They're incredible. A man from Belgium said that I know I'm a man, but this rhetoric, so much of this about toxicity is really getting to me. And I have decided to go non-binary.
Oh dear.
Whoa, another man said, your book came past me while I was losing my wife, losing my business, losing my money, losing my place to live. And I was on the rails. And he was from the UK. And I was about to commit suicide. And this book saved me from that. I said, thank you, Lord. I did
Wow.
something good. And many, many men, many parents, mothers are thanking me for writing this book, because nobody would talk about it for fear that they would get canceled. Now, when I first wrote it, it had a different title, and it was an innocuous title. And my agent looked through it and she said, we can't publish this. I said, why is that? She said, because the publishers are all in their 30s. They are female. They are living mostly in New York, and they're the decision makers. They are all woke, and they will not publish an anti-woke book. And I said, well, that's really interesting, because the men, according to our statistics now, are moving toward conservatism. How are they going to handle this? It's not going to work. So they refused to publish it. And I said, that's okay. I'll publish it myself. This is my 19th book, so I know my way around books and promotions and all of that. And I published it myself, but I also called the subtitle, "The Book They Would Not Publish, The Truth That Must Be Told." And the first 2 pages of the book talk about how we do not have freedom of speech here.
No.
We are not being allowed to publish certain things because it doesn't fit with some woke narrative. And that in itself is discriminatory. So when you talk about who's being discriminated against, it is those of us who want freedom of speech and are not getting it.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you this. You mentioned that young men are veering now towards more conservatism, and I think it's a result of in part the culture, in part the economy, because they realize that they've been sort of swindled out of a future. But we've got a big problem because we've decimated marriage, and young men are doing conservative, and young women are not. They are going more liberal, and so pretty soon we're going to struggle just to have kids get married. They're just not going to hook up. They're just not going to. And now with the advent of, tremendous access to all the pornography you could possibly want and desire, which is, by the way, terribly emasculating for young men. You're going to lose on both ends. I just don't. I don't see a way out unless everybody goes and gets Dr. Gilda's book and reads it. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, you like that.
Pretty good. Yeah. Well, everything that you mentioned is in the book. The porn, the sitting at home, the not going out because of the porn, not having real relationships and real intimacy with women.
Well, yeah,
non-communication.
The social media hookups, like it's, and with no expectations and no, and the problem that we have, I think, is we have convinced young men that their only purpose in life is to earn money. And that's just not true. And so now they're devoid of purpose and they're nihilistic, and, it's just about hedonism.
I just discovered something. This is so unnerving to me. I haven't talked about it anywhere yet, but I'll share this with you.
Are you looking for quality homeschooling resources? Apologia offers top-notch curriculum for all ages. It's designed to inspire a love of learning and a strong foundation in faith. Head over to apologia.com and use code SORBO10 to get 10% off your next purchase. Equip your children with the best education tools and save today at Apologia, the trusted choice for homeschooling families.
I just discovered something. This is so unnerving to me. I haven't talked about it anywhere yet, but I'll share this with you. I did TikTok short. I do TikTok shorts. I do all these shorts on the social media platforms. And one of the platforms had a woman discussing male suicide rates. Another person, it had to be a woman, said they're not high enough. And this was the unnerving part. 7,000 people liked that comment that male suicides are not high enough. I was absolutely devastated. So what are we saying here, really? There are 2 kinds of women. There are the women who are just hateful towards men. Those are the woke women. And there are the rest of them who are saying, hey, guys, we want intimacy. What is happening here? The men, in fact, as I'm reading, because we could read all the newspaper articles and all the magazines and all the books we want, but to get into the real brain and the guts of what is happening today, it's on social media. And I'm there and I'm reading it, and people are trusting me to speak their mind. The men have had it up to here. They have had it, and they are becoming very angry. They're angry at the court system, who doesn't defend them.
Yeah.
They're angry at losing their kids when a
Yeah.
woman has used their relationship as the barter chip. They're angry at being abused. And one guy said, you know all my weaknesses and you use them against me. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And the fury of men, but the men who are talking on social media are all disguised. So, with names that you can't
Yeah.
identify.
Sure.
And why should they identify themselves? Why should they, if they're going to be canceled and crushed and castrated?
Yeah.
Why should they? There was a guy, and I have his statement up also on my website. He has a PhD and he worked for a very prominent company. And he opened his mouth and he said, well, this is not right. We have to do it this way or that. Guess what? They fired him. So he said, Dr. Gilda, thank you so much for speaking up because I can't. And your heart has to break over this.
Well, he can, but he's afraid. And so he
already lost a big job. He
Right.
has a PhD. He has all these credentials. He's well published.
But we need more people to be speaking up because we need to, it's basically going to be sort of a bifurcation. We're going to split and we're going to have the truth side and we're going to have the side that's full of lies or whatever. And you talk a little bit about this. You talk about art of war in your book and sort of ancient, ideas.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and I did that because I teach MBA courses. And I'm not only talking about interpersonal relationships, I'm also talking about business relationships. It's everything.
Yeah.
And business and romance, it's all the same stuff that you have to do if you're in any kind of relationship that's going to end or continue in a happy vein. You're going to have to be transparent. You're going to have to not go to fight all the time. Thank you, Sun Tzu. You're not going to fight all the time.
Right.
You're going to communicate instead. And now nobody is communicating.
No.
You have your head buried in your phone, and that's what you do. And people are not intimate. They're not communicating. There was an article in the New York Times of all papers. It was under the modern romance section, or modern love, I think they call it. And this woman is saying, "Men, where have you gone? I want to come home. I want intimacy. There's no more intimacy."
But there's a video that surfaced that got a lot of hits, and it's a young woman who starts by saying, I'm fairly liberal and I believe what I believe or whatever. And I started dating this guy and he seemed like maybe he was conservative, but I couldn't pin him down. I couldn't figure out what he was. And then, and she goes on and she's like the most toxic creature and it's her way or the highway. And she doesn't tolerate anything and he has to pay for everything. And you're like, dude, there's no way a guy would ever want any of what's happening there. You know what I'm saying? Like she's such a shrew. And so you have these women they've been raised to believe that they are absolutely entitled without lifting a finger. I mean, what are you looking for in a guy? Well, he's got to be 6'2" and he's got to be really fit. Meanwhile, the chick is like overweight and doesn't take care of herself and brings literally nothing to the table, but she feels like this is the man that she should have, basically.
There is no help for this. I was on a TV show because I've been on television for years, and I was on a TV show, and it was a talk show, and I was the therapist on the show, and this very, very overweight woman had about 5 children, all out of wedlock with a different father. She had skin that was just crawling with blemishes and pimples and whatnot. And I said, what are you going to do? You can't keep on this path. It's not fair to your kids. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to any guy who gets involved with you if he even wants to stay around. What are you going to do? And her response was, I'll just find a rich man. And I, not to be outdone with that, said, And what would he find attractive about you? No answer. And the audience, yeah, because I had no way of getting to her, for her to learn that this is a two-way street.
Right. What do you bring to the table? It's a partnership, but we aren't raising our kids to believe that. So
Right.
listen, I wanted to ask you about the Supreme Court in Tennessee upholding the ban on puberty blockers and transitioning minors and stuff. What do you make of all that?
Well, I have my own feelings about this whole thing. A 12-year-old who decides that he wants to be a girl at 12. I think that for parents to say, okay, whatever you want, honey, is abuse of that child. For parents to not be friendly towards, but think that they are friends with their child is ridiculous, and it is abusive, because every child needs boundaries and every child needs parents. And if they don't have male parents in the house, that's another problem that contributes to the suicide rate of men. But, and that's a whole other, we could get into that. But these parents to give in to the kids who say, well, I just want to be a boy, or I just want to be a girl. And then later on, with longitudinal studies and good research, we have seen some of the kids who did trans, they became trans and they transitioned, and they're very unhappy now as older people. One girl had everything changed in her body. She had breasts that she took off, and she finally grew up. She realized this was a phase, she said. And she said, and now I can't breastfeed my children. Yeah. But who does she go and turn around to and point fingers at? Her parents, who are dumber than dumb to have allowed this to happen.
Well, the problem is that there are so many people. Look, we live in a very weak society. We have very weak people because of our own schooling. We weren't taught discernment. We weren't taught to stand up for anything. We were taught to obey and conform and follow orders, etc. And so these poor parents, and my heart goes out to them. Look, some of them are complicit, and that's terrible. A 5-year-old should not be entertaining the idea that maybe they're a different gender. That should not be in the 5-year-old's thing. 12, and you go to school, you're going to be exposed to it every day. So I understand a 12-year-old having this challenge thrown down and going home and talking to her parents, and her parents consulting professionals, and the professionals say, this 12-year-old will commit suicide if you don't affirm. And that's what they say to them.
We can talk about these so-called professionals or the Supreme Court, Justice Sotomayor. What she said, oh no, we have to listen to the kids to express themselves. Give me a break. A 12-year-old or a 13-year-old is not mature enough. The prefrontal cortex of the brain that makes decisions does not mature until the age of 25, say scientists. And now the scientists have upgraded that to age 30. Yeah. So 30 years old versus 12 years old, there's a lot of maturation that occurs.
Incidentally, you bring up such an interesting point. I hadn't thought of this before. Stay ahead of the storm with IQ Weather, a premium all-video homeschool course that makes learning science exciting and engaging. This vivid, entertaining program incorporates physics, chemistry, geography, geology, astronomy, and oceanography, giving your kids a well-rounded education in the fascinating world of weather. Designed to captivate young minds, IQ Weather makes complex concepts easy to understand and fun to explore. Visit iqweather.com and use code SAM to get 15% off your order. Give your kids a science education they'll love and stay prepared for anything. Start your IQ Weather journey today. You bring up such an interesting point. I hadn't thought of this before. we used to mature much faster. We used to get married earlier, and we used to mature much faster. And I wonder if this is the outgrowth of the effects of our schooling on us, because our schooling absolutely infantilizes us. And I wonder if the effect of being in school, being in a classroom, knowing that you're going to be in that classroom until you're 18 years of age, unless you drop out, and then even more probably after that, right? Because that is the plan. Um, I wonder if that has this effect of actually slowing brain development.
Well, I think a lot of things are slowing brain development right now, as we have seen. Um, Not having interpersonal relationships, not having real communication,
Oh, that's a
communicating
good
with an
point.
inanimate object called a telephone or a
Right.
computer or an iPad.
Fascinating.
That is not going to present or prepare a
Right.
person for maturity. They get out into the workforce, they can't even talk to anybody.
Right.
They can't interact. And what's more, they can't succeed. So they look around and they see all this flash, all the stuff that they see in the movies, and they think, "Oh, wow, why don't I have that?" And they just give up and commit suicide because they don't.
Mm.
Rather than put effort into who they are. Go
Well, they're
back to
never trained. We don't train children to put effort into who they are. We're too busy affirming how great they are at every stage of their life, even
yeah,
when they're not finished yet. And you're just like, no, you're perfect the way you are. And that's
there
the whole mantra.
there goes the maturity.
Right.
It's not going to happen. Of course,
It's a
it's
good
not
point.
going to happen. So if these kids are not maturing, and yet we're going to tell them, okay, but we're going to allow your body to change how it was originally meant to be.
No, I
Now, and
can't
you know,
support it. I don't support it. It's very sad. The detransitioners'
but
stories
here,
are
but
so heartbreaking.
it's so heartbreaking because now it's after the fact, and they're
It's
talking
too
about,
late.
well, too late, and
So
it's
there was
already cut off
right,
the genitals
right.
in boys' cases, and they don't know what to do. They
There
think they're so happy initially.
Well,
Well,
initially it looks
get what
good,
you
but
want?
5 years down the line, not so much.
No, because
And
they need maturity. The
and
prefrontal, this is all science now,
they're
and
drug patients for the rest of their lives.
the
And I
rest of
just
your
saw
life.
a testimony of a 20-year-old young woman who transitioned to a boy when she was 14. They cut her breasts off when she was 14. And her testimony was, I was not legal to drive. I was not legal to choose to tattoo my body. I had not taken high school algebra yet. And they cut off my body parts. And they did not tell me that I would be incontinent for the rest of my life because of the drugs that they gave me. And you just go, and now she's 20 and full of regret. And there's very little that she can do about it because she's been so damaged by these people. And the one thing she said, she went on the doctor's website and left reviews to warn other people. And he took down the reviews. He took them down. So he now has diminished her voice even to proclaim the truth. It's very sad. All right, we're running out of time. I have 3 questions that I ask each of my guests, Dr. Gilda.
Okay.
1, what is your education background and do you use it today?
I have a PhD in educational leadership. I started out as a teacher in the worst neighborhood in the world, in the South Bronx in New York, and I taught there for quite a number of years. And as I was teaching the kids language skills, they were teaching me street smarts. And as I grew out of that job and into corporate advice and consultations, I was teaching executives street smarts. I
Oh,
don't believe that you have a beginning job where you start, and I don't believe that that's it. You say goodbye to that because that is still with you. And if you try to hide from, well, I was a bookkeeper or I stocked shelves for, when I first started out getting right out of high school, you have no idea the skills you have learned during that time. Use
sure.
them, be proud of them, and let people know what you've learned from them.
So great. What advice would you give your younger self?
Well, let's see. I was married for about 9 years, and I now know, because my prefrontal cortex is matured. I now know that I had to have this marriage, this relationship with this man for a reason, because everybody is in our life to teach us something. Maybe I could have stayed 9 months rather than 9 years. But I think that most of us regret staying too long at the fair. But those moments that we stay are also so educational.
You make me
Accept them,
laugh.
love them. Why?
It's just funny. It's just so your advice to your younger self is don't stay too long at the party.
Yeah.
Leave before the clock strikes.
Yeah. And make them want more of you. Let them hunger after you, just like Cinderella's
Just like
prince.
Cinderella.
Ah.
All right. Last question. What's the most urgent cultural shift that you see is needed to get us back on track?
Oh my God. Men must be men again. And women, because I don't let women off the hook on this, because we are all interacting together. Women have to make it safe for our men to talk their mind, to tell us how they're feeling. Feelings are not a dirty word, and vulnerability is not a dirty word. We want strong yet vulnerable, and that equals humanity.
Love it. Very strong. Dr. Gilda, author of Real Men Don't Go Woke. Thank you so much for joining me on the Sam Sorbo Show.
What a pleasure.
And so that's it for me. Listen, if you enjoyed this show and you enjoyed the conversation, do leave me a 5-star review, please. And also share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe and like and do all of those great things on whatever platform you listen to. We need to grow the show and you can help. Also, if you would write a review, I will be reading reviews online. So write a review, make it poignant, make it funny, make it silly, make it true. And maybe your review will be one of the ones I read on air. That's it for me. Thank you so much for joining me for the Sam Sorbo Show. Remember, speak truth, speak it boldly. We'll see you next time.
The views and opinions expressed in the Sam Sorbo Show are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views and positions of the Herzog Foundation.